evening. Klaus Schwab is glad you're watching tonight because you're his prey. We'll be covering top news stories like what's the latest on Joe Rogan, why is Biden handing out free crack pipes, and how you're now a domestic terrorist if you think for yourself. Plus more. Propaganda is good for you and helps you be a responsible citizen. And because I sold my soul to the establishment, I'm here to feed it to you. The Department of Homeland Security released a statement about our current terrorism threats. And the main threat happens to be you. In their statement, which is obviously not political at all, they said, the United States remains in a heightened threat environment fueled by several factors, including an online environment filled with false or misleading narratives and conspiracy theories and other forms of mis, dis, and malinformation, introduced and or amplified by foreign and domestic threat actors. They went on to say the following has increased the volatility of the threat environment. The proliferation of false or misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions. This, as the president has directly called on Spotify to censor Joe Rogan. The government actively trying to repeal the First Amendment? Who's the terrorist? You. And being dedicated to the search for truth rather than being dedicated to the narrative should make you feel ashamed and intimidated and therefore more compliant. That kind of manipulation should definitely work on brave Americans. And everyone's favorite government institution that we pretend isn't a government institution, Pfizer, has achieved some record sales. Oh, who would have thought? Pfizer, who has paid the largest criminal fine in U.S. history, has reported $36.8 billion in sales in 2021, making it the highest selling pharmaceutical product in a single year. Ever. Kind of makes a $2.3 billion fine for crimes against humanity just part of a good business strategy. And if you follow the money trail, it of course leads nowhere other than Joe Rogan spreading misinformation. We need to protect ourselves from this dangerous terrorist who says words while speaking to other people that say words. Speaking of Joe Rogan, public enemy number one, who specializes in spreading medical misinformation and must be stopped, Rogan's friend Zuby points out this reality. We need to censor people who spread medical misinformation, says people who claim men can get pregnant and menstruate. Yeah, that's exactly the case, Zuby. Moving on before we think too much about that. It appears as though the organic attack on Joe Rogan is orchestrated by a Democrat super PAC, Media's Touch, which is funded by the Mysalis brothers and run through a subsidiary called Patriot Takes. So the outrage against Joe Rogan for sharing truth that our narrative declares as misinformation and the latest video compilation of him saying the N-word out of context is nothing but a political hit job? Well, even though that's what it is, you're not allowed to think that or else we'll consider you a domestic terrorist. We will also not be covering how there's monumentally more authentic support for Joe Rogan than there is fabricated outrage against him. As the dedicated, honest journalists that we are, we've also been instructed not to cover the even more recent circulating videos of Howard Stern and Joe Biden repeatedly using the N-word. One of my favorite online spreaders of misinformation, DC Drano, points this out. Breaking! Leftists dig up old video of Joe Rogan giving eulogy for former KKK recruiter that he called a friend and mentor. Wait, my bad. That was Joe Biden. Never mind. Never mind indeed. Let's move on. The greatest president of all time, Joe Biden, who's definitely not a racist, has announced he'll be using $30 million of your tax dollars to hand out free crack pipes to people in a move that he says is an attempt to create racial equity. Huh? Racial equity through free crack pipes? Yes, indeed. That works on the supposition that black people smoke crack. By supplying crack pipes to support the drug habit that those people have, you're creating racial equity. Now that might sound like what some would call blatant racism, but if you listen closely, we're calling it the opposite of that. Racial equity. Calling it anything other than what we pretend it is would just be misinformation. And that's terrorism. Moving along. And in a world that's definitely not misinformation, CNN's own Dr. Propaganda now claims that mask mandates should end because the Science has changed. Indeed, the science now shows that midterm elections are coming up and 70% of Americans are fed up with tyranny. Weird how science works.
Also, the science has changed.
Fun fact, Dr. Propaganda used to be the head of Planned Parenthood, where she proudly promoted the killing of babies as a virtuous expression of personal empowerment. She probably wishes your children were dead. And getting even deeper into the latest scientific knowledge that's based on corrupt business models, what's Dr. Fauci have to say recently? Who the f cares? Does anyone listen to this useful idiot anymore aside from me? But I did have a chance to sit down with Dr. Fauci recently to discuss my favorite book about him, The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let's take a look. Hi, Anthony. Can I call you Tony? No! Tony, this book is loaded with incriminating allegations against you that you seem to hide. Misinformation! Of course it is, because it's backed by thousands of valid references. Yeah, I wish none of it ever got exposed either. Well, they know, but I don't think anything's gonna happen to you. 12th booster indeed. Good book. Check it out. Beautiful deep dive. And in our final story tonight, Facebook stock is plunging. The extension of the Biden administration had their value dropped by a full 1/3. This came in response to a quarterly earnings report that showed the first ever decline in Facebook daily users. What? People are using Facebook less? It almost looks like people don't want to be censored, controlled, and manipulated by deceptive algorithms anymore. Little do these people know, if they don't let Facebook control their freedom of expression anymore, then they'll be in control of it themselves. And that sounds horrible if you're a communist. Besides, having fully centralized companies that can censor you and sell your attention and data for their profit is the best we have. There's no alternatives that are decentralized that put the user in complete control of their social networking experience while being free of censorship.
What about Zion? It does all that.
No, we're going to pretend like they don't exist. People being free and sovereign is dangerous to our agenda. Besides, I hate free speech. That's it for today's news. You're a terrorist, Joe Rogan's destroying our plan, and Biden thinks all black people do crack. Good night. Hi, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, BlueBlox, and their red light therapy devices, the Hive. I can't see anything. I just cured that. The number one question I'm asked is, JP, can non-redheads use red light therapy as well? Yes, red light therapy is great even for people with souls. Red light therapy has become one of my all-time favorite biohacks. That's why if you look at the biohacking community, red light therapy has earned its place as a staple. Well, what does red light therapy do for you? That's a great question, Mr. Polar Bear. In short, red light therapy helps you feel and function your best. But how does it do that? Studies have shown red light therapy is helpful in helping you recover from exercise, helping you recover from injuries, aiding in fat loss, reducing aging signs in your skin, and improving your energy, because the red light therapy stimulates the mitochondria of your cells, which produce more energy. And the Hive red light therapy devices made by BlueBlox are second to none. Personally, I go for 20-minute red light therapy sessions about 3 times a week, or if I'm recovering from an injury, which I basically always am because I'm an idiot and I hurt myself often, then I do red light therapy more than that. I'm someone who loves to feel and function my best. That's why I choose to do red light therapy, and the BlueBlox red light therapy devices are my favorite on the market. And if you want to check out BlueBlox's full range of sizes and red light therapy devices, then go to blueblox.com/JP. And be sure to use a discount code JP to get 15% off. Enjoy.